What artificial intelligence allows you to do is really look at the red flags right there in front of you. So allowing T2D2 to use its proprietary artificial intelligence to identify what the big problems are, to save all of that time that you would spend manually reviewing your drone inspection imagery, really is a game changer.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 364. How do you simplify material failure detection? If you ask today's guest, he would say, teach a computer to do it, then put it on a drone. Johnathan Ehrlich is COO of T2D2, a software as a service company that uses artificial intelligence to identify and assess damage and deterioration to buildings and structures. T2D2 applies data from more than 50 years of building inspection and forensic investigation work. The data is now available to property and portfolio owners and managers, as well as municipalities, to identify deterioration early and throughout the life of an asset. T2D2 makes it easier, quicker, and less expensive to inspect structures by identifying damage and defects before they become major issues. Their software automatically detects visible damage in concrete, steel, and masonry structures. T2D2 was established within Thornton Tomasetti, a global design and engineering firm with more than 50 years' experience in structural design. Initially part of the Core Studio incubator, T2D2 was commercialized as a separate entity through the firm's accelerator program. Before becoming COO of T2D2, Johnathan served as the Director of Strategy, Corporate Development, and Partnerships at ButterflyMX, a leader in real estate software technology. Prior, he specialized in the financing and development of mega infrastructure and real estate projects. He served as the Director of Budget and Risk Management for the $3.9 Mario M. Cuomo Bridge to replace the Tappan Zee. Prior to that, he served as Special Assistant to the Chairman of the New York State Thruway Authority, where he was responsible for board oversight of the $1.5 billion multi-year capital program and pavement condition rating system. He holds a BA from Tufts University and an MBA from NYU Stern School of Business. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Johnathan talks about T2D2, the company's AI inspection services, and how that technology is simplifying facade and infrastructure inspections. But before we hear from Johnathan, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share in a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's find out how we can simplify the inspection process with Johnathan Ehrlich of T2D2. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Johnathan to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Johnathan Ehrlich. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of T2D2.
Johnathan, what is T2D2?
So T2D2 is a SaaS software platform for engineers, architects, and building owners to allow them to use drone imagery, to use AI to automatically detect over 80 different types of damage in 8 different types of building materials.
How did the company get its start?
So the company was started in 2018 inside of an R&D division of a very large structural engineering firm. And then we spun it out of that firm in the summer of 2021, so just about a year ago, as a separate and independent company.
Originally, it was part of Thornton Tomasetti, a global design and engineering firm, Why did Thornton Tomasetti create the service?
I think that we saw a huge need, first of all, in drone cloud data storage in general. So I think that, there are plenty of inspection platforms and commercial drone flight control softwares that allow you to upload your imagery to the cloud and host it there. But when it came to professional organizations like engineers, architects, building inspectors, hosting things in the cloud and then sharing them with a third party, there really wasn't software that allowed all of that third party interaction, commenting, various types of permissioning, just in general with videos and all different types of cross data platforms like regular photos, LiDAR imagery, thermal imagery, and more to be able to have all of it in one place and provide it to your clients. Now, the second part of it is then our AI, right? And what we saw was once you get into the world of drone inspection, you've sort of solved one issue, which is all of the unsafe and time-consuming and expensive ways that we traditionally inspect buildings and infrastructure. But what you've created is a new problem, which is being able to sift through all of that data, right? So going through thousands and thousands of images or hours of video. And what artificial intelligence allows you to do is really look at the red flags right there in front of you. So allowing T2D2 to use its proprietary artificial intelligence to identify what the big problems are, to save all of that time that you would spend manually reviewing your drone inspection imagery, really is a game changer.
Does D2D2 do the inspections, or is that left up to the client?
So we operate on a you fly or will fly model. So we can do it either way. If we fly, we use our nationwide network of drone pilots, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more. We've developed our own network of people who we think, have adequately shown that they have proficiency in flying building and asset inspections, which is, a certain level of technical inspection, professional expertise above and beyond your typical commercial drone use, like mapping or different types of photogrammetric compilation. And if you fly, then you're able to, you or your drone provider can upload all of your imagery on your own to the platform.
What happens after the data is collected?
Right now, our turnaround time is around 5 to 7 business days, but essentially all of that imagery is processed through our artificial intelligence. You see the data right there when you upload it instantly. So you have instant access to all of your imagery, your photos, your videos, your orthomosaics, your 3D models. Soon to come down the pipeline, 360-degree photos, and a bunch of other neat tools that we're excited to announce. But then once you get the artificial intelligence data, you can see every single detection of damage in all of those images. So you can see we have 80 different types of material damage defects we can find across 8 different building materials. And that allows us to show you all of your concrete cracks and spalls, rebar corrosion, and again, many different types. That's just that's just scratching the surface of the depth that we can go through in terms of showing you what you've got wrong with your asset and where exactly it's happening.
What kind of data prep is required for the AI to do its thing? I mean, I assume you just can't upload a bunch of images and video, then hope the AI will figure everything out.
Our AI is extremely flexible, and it does allow you to upload quite a bunch. It gives you a lot of leeway. You can upload photos that are taken from various distances and angles. But we've even gone so far as to develop our own facade and building inspection standard. Again, we do all different types of assets. We have bridges, nuclear power plants, baseball stadiums on our platform. We primarily do standard building inspection, but we've developed standard to talk exactly about what you're saying. How far do we want the drone to be from the surface that it's inspecting? What megapixel resolution camera should it have? Various different concerns such as GPS reliance, which we don't rely on pretty much at all, and other things of that nature, just to make sure that we have the optimal quality in order to process it through AI, through our computer vision models.
Who are your typical clients?
So we have individual engineering and architecture firms. We have public sector owner clients, public sector, but also large institutional owners of real estate who really want to own all of that condition data about their assets. And then we also have drone providers who work within our network and act as resellers. What we see is that the owners are really starting to learn that they can have access to this data. They can have access to the photos and the videos that comprise their building inspections. But then once they add more material to, especially in T2D2's case, as they add more material over time, T2D2 gives them the opportunity to have that not only organized and cataloged, but then to extract the data out of that organization to show where things are deteriorating over time. Because it's super important to be able to see the red flag right now point in time condition survey. But when I can tell how things are deteriorating over multiple points in time, I then can get a really good sense of where the true red flags are, because those will be the areas that are corroding or deteriorating at a faster rate, especially faster than I had anticipated. And then in the future, even potentially get to the point where you can project future deterioration and see where you really need to have targeted intervention to decrease deferred maintenance.
As a former city planner, I'm curious, are any of your clients using the service as part of their routine building inspections required by local governments?
In the United States, there are about 15 cities around the country that currently require periodic inspection of buildings, right? Of building facades. There are other cities around the world, such as Singapore, and multiple cities in Australia that require routine building inspections as well. There are certainly companies that are using T2D2 as a compliance tool to make sure that they have all of the imagery they need in order to compile the report that is needed to then submit to their local buildings department or city clerk to then satisfy the requirement for periodic building inspection. Where this really helps our customers is where they then can come back, whenever that is needed, if it's an every year or every 5-year inspection that's required, and they can immediately go back to the inspection that was done in the most immediate past cycle and provide a really compelling report to their buildings department and satisfy that requirement by pulling up the condition from the previous inspection and showing those side-by-side comparisons of conditions over time. One thing that buildings departments have told us is a frequent culprit of rejected inspection reports is simply not knowing where an image was captured on the building. They'll just look at a report and they'll say, I have no idea where this picture was taken. And if it's even taken by a drone, sometimes they won't see it there. So our ability to go ahead and geotag those photos onto architectural drawings, orthomosaics, allows these buildings departments to rapidly decrease their rejection rate of inspection reports.
So a certain part of your business is dedicated to assisting in compliance reviews. But am I correct that a larger part of the business is helping companies better understand the conditions of their assets?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that's the ultimate goal of all of these compliance reports, right? All these cities are trying to do is to get building owners or asset owners to pay attention to the things that are problematic in their building conditions and repair them. So I think that we're seeing a lot of people understand that buildings are deteriorating at an accelerated rate now. Part of that is being impacted by climate change and the increase in certain types of corrosion, for example, in concrete and rebar inside concrete. And I think that the realization is that if you increase your resource allocation, if you increase your spend on the inspection side of things, you can really decrease your overall cost. If you understand more about what you have, then you can act earlier, and then you can find the things that are going to become huge cost items if you let them alone to corrode and have much greater impact. And that's why we see people not only using T2D2 for, in the case where there are periodic inspections, they might use it on that periodic inspection, but that's just another year in what they're already doing, right? So if they're doing that every 5 years, then they're using T2D2 every year in order to see exactly where things are getting bad, go ahead and target them to be able to take care of a small issue. And they'll do that mid-cycle, right? So if you're required to do an inspection every 5 years, they'll be doing a drone inspection at a much lower cost every 12 or 18 months. And they'll be able to act much quicker because sometimes in some environmental conditions, every 5 years isn't even enough.
What's the story behind the company's name, T2D2?
So I have to admit that originally the name was created because, as I mentioned, we were spun out of a larger structural engineering firm. We're now a completely separate and independent company that works fully apart from them. The engineering firm that we're a part of or were is called Thornton Tomasetti. That's the TT. So that was T2, and then it was the Thornton Tomasetti damage detector once upon a time. Now we're T2D2, sort of stands for nothing, but we still think we're R2D2's famous cousin if you're not so famous cousin if you're a Star Wars fan, and we like the name, so we kept it.
The process by which Thornton Tomasetti created T2D2, is that unique?
I think that the larger company recognized that this had so much tremendous commercial potential beyond just a tool that they used for their own clients. And the company, Thornton Tomasetti, certainly is known as a pioneer in terms of supporting technology inside the engineering world. They have a number of companies that they've spun out similar to our story. They have also their own incubator, accelerator, and venture capital fund. So there's certainly a commitment to innovation and technology and software within engineering and architecture. And I think in the case where they spin out companies like ours, it's a recognition that as a company, and they're still a valued investor of ours as well, they see it as a much more commercially viable opportunity as its own service or its own software that other people will then benefit from than just something if they had kept it in-house.
How did you get involved with T2D2?
I came in right as they identified they wanted to commercialize the concept and spin it out. Before then, it was really developed as an R&D project. And within the R&D department, our CEO was the head of AI inside of a structural engineering company. So that in and of itself is a unique and amazing thing that there even was such a thing as the head of AI in a structural engineering company. And when I came in, my background is in the real estate and technology worlds. So understanding how a company can go from proof of concept all the way to commercially viable product and commercially thriving company was essentially my task. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
Did you have prior experience with startups?
My background began in the civil infrastructure space, working for the state of New York on large highway, bridge, and tunnel projects. And then I went into the real estate industry before I began as an early employee at a company called ButterflyMX, which is in the access control, property management, and video intercom space, selling to very large portfolio level institutional multifamily real estate owners across the United States and now internationally, until I came here to basically do the same thing again at T2D2.
What attracted you most about this opportunity?
I think that AI really has a space in this industry and in our world at large. I really do believe in AI, and I also understand the challenges that AI brings, right? I understand that AI is not the answer to everything. And boy, can I tell you that in some of the meetings that we have with prospective customers, they certainly wish it was. It sounds great and it sounds like it's the answer to all your problems. More important than knowing what it can do is knowing what it can't. And even by going to some of these conferences and hearing what some of the software companies and hardware companies are doing with AI, of course, knowing so many of the great applications in industries like the driverless car space. But in this case, you have to really understand what the problem is that you're trying to solve and making sure that you're not biting off more of the apple than you can chew, right? So I think that what I saw here, first and foremost, was a product that worked. And that's really what got me going and why I am definitely betting on the future of T2D2. And I think that as we continue to improve our AI and to continue to improve our product, because AI is important, but your ability to then visualize that data and make use out of the data that you're getting from it is equally as important. So I think that's really why I joined and why I believe in it.
Well, how do you manage a client's expectation and still give them something to be excited about?
What I would say is that AI is going to provide you with the answer booklet, but it's up to you to then go into the answer booklet and see which are the answers that you're looking for. Maybe that's not the best metaphor, but the point is that it still is going to require that the user go in at this point in time in the development of AI and search a little bit through that data in order to find the ultimate conclusion. Now, I still do think that in many cases, AI has simplified the process immensely. We also have been able to really direct attention to areas that I think would have gone overlooked before. One example that comes to mind is the I-40 bridge in Arkansas, where unfortunately an individual lost their job because they had a drone flight of the bridge and missed a significant crack in a structural steel member that was caught right on camera on the drone flight. So it shows how difficult it can be to look at some of this imagery captured from drone inspections and really find what it is that you're looking for. So I think that AI is going to show you what's there, right? But it's still up to you to go look for it. So that's definitely one thing that we're going to tell customers when they're talking about what can it do, what can it not do. I think that what gets us really excited about the future are all sorts of different data types, from LiDAR to thermal imaging, infrared, and more, 360-degree cameras I mentioned. So as we continue to ingest additional imagery and data types, we have to just be more and more certain that as we do so, we're not exceeding, or we're not raising the bar too high and making people expect too much.
In addition to identifying anomalies, can the AI go further and tell you exactly what the anomaly is?
Yeah, so that's a great indicator of the dividing line of where AI starts and stops. So our AI trained on hundreds of thousands of images of structural defects across 50 years of data imagery, which is really part of our core value proposition that we bring to the table, is our proprietary AI and the data set it was trained on. Whether it's that or any other application of this particular component of artificial intelligence that is called computer vision, it's very good at telling you whether something is or is not what you're looking for, right? In the driverless car world, we've all been trained to be able to interact with reCAPTCHA on our computers, and we're all working as the mechanical Turk in order to train imagery or train computers on identifying traffic lights and crosswalks and stop signs and school buses, et cetera, right? It's very good at determining whether it is or it isn't. So in our case, we have 80 different types of individual damage detections, 8 different building material types across which we can detect damage. And we're very good at telling you if it is or it isn't, right? Once you start then getting beyond is it a crack, is it not a crack, is it corrosion, is it not corrosion, and you want to be able to tell, well, what is the corrosion then causing, what is the implication, what is, is it incredibly severe? We can determine some of those things based on the size of the corrosion, but once you get a little bit deeper into the root causes, the implications, et cetera, that's when you then have to, secure the services of your friendliest professional engineer in order to provide you with additional information to that extent.
So what's next for T2D2?
We were very excited to announce a few weeks ago at the AUVSI conference that we launched our drone partner network. So we have about 20 individual drone service providers today in our drone partner network. We take it very seriously because we're recommending them to our customers as they come in. You can learn more about that on our website, t2d2.ai. And drone partners have, as I said earlier, shown a certain level of proficiency in being able to fly building elevations and other assets at close range using certain hardware. And we have also announced recently our building facade inspection standard as well, which has continued to grow with the input of more people. And I think that people have really found that to be very helpful. We hope for some additional feature announcements coming soon, so stay tuned. But those were the 2 recent announcements that we're really excited about.
The facade inspection standard that you mentioned, is that a set of rules on how to collect the data with a drone? Or is it more about the requirements on how to conduct the inspection itself?
I'd say it's more guidelines, and it's both. I think that to the extent that we're suggesting procedures on how to conduct the inspection itself, what we're talking about mostly there in terms of means and methods. For example, we talk about reliance on GPS. GPS is notoriously difficult in dense urban environments, which many drone inspection of large, high elevation building facades, that counts. And GPS is also unreliable to some extent when you're close to large objects that may obstruct satellite view, and also large metal objects, which may present magnetic interference. So you've got three reasons why you could potentially have a scrambled GPS signal. And then we have to talk about alternatives to GPS reliant flight in order to, do a building facade surface like ADI mode if you're working in manual flight mode, or if you're going to be relying on some other type of signal, such as a GNSS signal, RTK, local base station, et cetera. So those are the types of things we'll talk about there, as well as certain hardware specifications, as I mentioned, like sensor resolution, distance from the surface, reliance on proximity avoidance or proximity detection, obstacle avoidance, sensors on board any of your off-the-shelf drones, and more.
What are the benefits of having a standard?
I'd say there are two main reasons for the standard. First is in order to ensure safety and proper flight, because I do think that facade inspection does present a serious safety risk when it comes to drone operations. We just talked about GPS, and all it takes is going on YouTube to take a look at the various times when drone operators have unfortunately experienced collisions with buildings because of lack of knowledge, in some cases, of proper UAV operation. And then the second is ensure optimal quality outputs, right? And in most cases, optimal quality outputs for any other purpose are going to solve optimal quality outputs for AI, right? So angle to the surface, exactly how you're performing the inspection, sensor resolution, et cetera, being able to optimize all of those things is only just going to make it better for AI. And of course, if standardization across different inspections across different assets is something that results, that's only beneficial for us. Where I will say it's really great to have standardization across two flights is not necessarily so the building in New York looks the same as it does in San Francisco, but it's so that if we do the building in San Francisco, then we come back a year later, it's going to look very similar. Now, we're able to account for a lot of leeway in terms of differing conditions between two flights, but it certainly helps.
As the COO of a startup, what's the experience to date taught you?
This definitely is a team effort. And I think that's, first of all, a main takeaway as we've been building this company is that it has been a team effort. When it comes to product versus technology, getting that product market fit, launching that minimum viable product to market, that has been an incredible journey that we have been on. And I think one of the things that we still are learning today is what the market demands, making sure that we're meeting our customers where they need to be. And to some extent, admitting some of our shortcomings and being able to pivot around them. That's been incredibly important. We have certainly taken that leap with some customers where we have pushed the boundary. And that's part of being a cutting edge company, is that sometimes you're going to venture into the territory of the unknown. And when you do that, you have to be ready to sometimes accept the consequences, roll with the punches, and get back up and continue marching along one step in front of the other.
Johnathan, is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
No, again, I think that we're super excited about the progress that we've been making so far. It's a pleasure to have joined you. And we're going to be announcing, more and more features as the year progresses. Again, we're at T2D2.ai, and I'm at Jon at T2D2.ai.
And for my final question, Johnathan, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry?
I think that the future of the drone industry is incredibly strong. I think that even the past few years and even months have shown incredible promise when it comes to drones, remote sensing, offsite inspections, and more. There is just more and more interest from especially the engineering and the asset ownership community when it comes to using drones. In our case, I think it's primarily for inspection purposes. There certainly are other applications as well. I think that people get really excited when they look at all of the different payloads that drones are supporting these days. There has been an incredible buzz around technologies like LiDAR. And I think as we see more and more cutting edge technologies come on to drone hardware themselves, we're able to then push, we're pushing the limits on software, but we see so many companies out there pushing the limits on hardware as well. There's a whole bunch of AI that's happening on board the drones for navigation. That's not our area, but we follow it closely, and it's very exciting when we look at some of the technologies out there that are able to achieve obstacle avoidance, proximity detection, collision avoidance. Those allow people to do great things like take great self-tracking and FPV video, but they also allow us to be able to get drones into areas for inspections they may not have been able to fly before and more. So I'm excited about where drones are going. They're becoming safer, lighter, more nimble, and I think that the future is bright.
That's it for episode 364 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Johnathan Ehrlich of T2D2. I want to thank Johnathan for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about T2D2 or want to connect with Johnathan, check out the website at t2d2.ai. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.